facts. Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, when the Liberals unveiled their national housing strategy, the Prime Minister very clearly stated housing rights are human rights, just days after they voted down our bill on the right to housing. Now they talk about a rights-based approach to housing, but even the UN Special Rapporteur on Housing has concerns that the government will not recognize that housing is a human right unto itself. When will the government stop using the right to housing as a slogan and an empty slogan and actually recognize this fundamental human right in law?
The Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very grateful for the question. On November 22nd, we announced the first ever national housing strategy. On November 22nd, we also announced the largest investment in the history of this government, of this nation, in housing. On November 22nd, we also announced that these investments would reduce homelessness and take 500,000 Canadians out of housing that is either unaffordable or inadequate, and that will be based on the right to housing, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, contrary to what they would have us believe, the Liberals never planned to recognize the right to housing. Surprised, the government has launched another round of consultations crafted to convey that their so-called approach to the right to housing is based on a lot of things except for implementing the right to housing. If the government truly believes housing is a right, will they at least have the courage to include it in our human rights legislation? The Honourable Minister of Social Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will answer this question entirely in French, but I'd like to quote from Ms. Ferrani, who, when the National Housing Strategy was announced in October, said this.
Acknowledgement that housing is a human right and its intention to recognize through a rights-based housing strategy as well as in legislation. Mr. Speaker, this was a historic moment. We're going to build history in the next 10 years while taking hundreds of thousands of Canadians out of housing need.